Hi and welcome to another story, and today we have part 4 of The Illustrated Mum by Jacqueline Wilson, continuing from Sorceress. We sat bolt upright, blinking. We stared at him. It was as if Princess Diana herself had whizzed down from heaven to see us. Marigold had been telling us about Mickey all our lives, but we'd never quite believed in him. "You're really Mickey," Star said, staring at this stranger. Though he didn't really seem strange, he was tall and thin like Star, with long fair hair that tangled around his shoulders. He had cornflower blue eyes and a straight nose and a crinkly smile and a dimple in just one of his cheeks. He was wearing a black t-shirt and a black leather jacket and black jeans and black boots. He wore a thin silver cuff on one wrist and an ornate silver ring on either hand. "Like my dad," Star whispered. He didn't look like anyone's dad. He looked like a rock star. Mickey glanced at Marigold. She nodded. "Like your dad, Star," he said. "Wow," said Star. "I can't believe it." "I can't either," said Mickey. "I didn't even realise I was a dad. This is so amazing. First I meet up with you, Marigold, and now I've got a daughter." He looked at me for a moment. "Hey, you're not my daughter too, little girl?" "No, that's Dolphin," said Marigold. "Hi, Dolphin. Cool name," said Mickey. His eyes had already swiveled back to Star. He seemed dazzled by her. "I told you," Marigold said to Mickey. "I told you," Marigold said to Star. She was so excited she was practically jumping up and down in her strappy sandals. Star and Mickey just stared at each other, as if they were leaning and learning their looks off by heart. Star and Mickey and Marigold seemed caught up in a big rainbow bubble, floating right up into the air. I was outside the bubble, down on the ground, not part of the family. "Do you want to get up, girls?" said Marigold. "I can fix us something to eat. Are you hungry, Mickey?" "We ate the chicken, Doll and me," said Star. "Hey, how did you meet? I mean, there must have been thousands at the concert." "Thousands and thousands," said Marigold. "But I found him. I knew I would. I even knew where to look for him." "I know, you looked into your crystal ball," said Mickey. Marigold laughed delightedly. "You remembered it." She had this beautiful sorceress tattooed right on her stomach, with long swirly hair and flowing robes. She gazed intently into a crystal ball, which was really Marigold's navel, the black outline going neatly all around it to make the crystal globe. "It was my idea. That sorceress with her crystal ball," said Mickey. "Let's see her again." Marigold pulled up her top, giggling. We got a glimpse too. "She's great. I do a sorceress too, but she bends the other way and she's more Celtic," said Mickey, holding out his ring. "You made your ring," said Star. "Mickey has his own jewellery business now," Marigold said proudly. "He does all his own designs." Mickey handed the ring to Star. "It's beautiful," she said, holding it reverently, examining every detail. I tried to look too, but she nudged me. "You're in my light, doll." She fingered the intricate design, tracing it delicately. She even felt inside, touching the whole band, still warm from his own finger. "Can I try it on?" "Sure." "It's way too big," Star said, as the ring swiveled around and around. "That's because you're ultra small," said Mickey. "Exactly how old are you, Star? Are you really 13? You look kind of little." "Your little girl," Marigold breathed, as if she was saying a prayer. Star tried so hard to look old for her age that I thought she'd get angry, but she didn't seem to mind at all. She looked up at Mickey through her blonde hair. My chest was so tight I could hardly breathe. I knew I should be happy. Star had found her father, but I couldn't bear the way he was looking at her. "I can't believe how lucky I am," said Mickey. Maybe he didn't just mean he was lucky to have discovered a daughter. Maybe he meant he was so glad he had the pretty blonde fairy sister for his daughter, not the plain stupid goblin. "We're all lucky, lucky, lucky," Marigold chanted, dancing around the room. She looked so beautiful, her red hair flying, arms up, her body snaking this way and that, like the sorceress on her stomach, but Mickey gave her an odd little glance. "Lucky, lucky, lucky, lucky," Marigold sang. She saw my face and pulled me out of bed, trying to get me to dance with her. I stumbled and lurched, feeling a fool and worrying about my nightie, which was much too short for serious dancing and very grubby too. "Come on, doll, dance, it's your luck too," said Marigold. "Your special 4-leaf clover. Hey, maybe I'll design a new clover tattoo with 4 leaves. My new lucky number, 4, the perfect balance number. And we have perfect balance, don't we, darling?" she said, whirling me round faster and faster. "I think we need to eat, Marigold. You seem ever so slightly and ultra-delightfully smashed," said Mickey. "I'm not smashed, I'm not shattered, I'm not crushed. I've been broken into shards, but now I'm whole again. As good as new, better than new," Marigold burbled. "I'll see if I can fix us something," Star said quickly, though we both knew there were just a few shreds of lettuce and only enough bread for tomorrow's breakfast toast. "How about pizza?" Mickey said. It was the middle of the night, but he knew the number of a 24-hour takeaway pizza place and phoned it on his mobile. "What's your favourite pizza topping, sweetheart?" he asked Star. "Extra cheese and double pineapple." He rocked back, miming astonishment. Mine too. I just don't believe this. It's mine as well, said Marigold, though she didn't even like pizza. What about you, Dolphin? I don't know what to say. I liked cheese and pineapple too. It was what we always had, but it would sound so stupid if I asked for it too, like some sad little parrot. I want mushroom and peppers, please, I said. It was a mistake. We had to wait ages for the pizzas to arrive. I had that sick, shaky feeling I always have when I get up in the night. The savoury smell of the pizzas was almost overwhelming. Star and Mickey started devouring theirs eagerly, swapping long lists of food likes and dislikes, laughing at every similarity, even the most obvious. Who doesn't like chocolate and hate Brussels sprouts? I realised too late that I hated mushrooms. The ones in my pizza were slimy and grey and half hidden in the pizza mix. It was like a little band of slugs had crawled into the box and nestled into a pizza bed. I tried to nibble my way around each one, my throat tense in case I accidentally swallowed one. The peppers weren't much better. They were bright red and green and looked pretty, but they tasted hot and horrible. Leave it, Star hissed. She looked apologetically at Mickey. She's sleepy. Marigold was only picking at hers. She went to the cupboard and bent down. She took a long gulp of vodka, her back to us. Perhaps she thought she was being discreet. I could hardly bear to watch her. I'll have some too then, said Mickey, shaking his head at her. Just a little nightcap, said Marigold. It's bedtime. Look at poor little doll. She can't keep her eyes open. Well, I suppose. Mickey swallowed the last of his pizza and stood up. He reached out and touched Star's long, shining hair. When I come and see you again, he asked. As if he was dating her. What? Said Marigold, shaking her head. She took another drink openly. Mickey, what are you on about? You're not going. Sweetheart, it's 2 a.m. Stop it. You're going to stay forever, said Marigold. You're staying here with us. I'll come back tomorrow, said Mickey. No, Marigold said it too loudly. No, you can't go now. She was nearly shouting. Mickey gave her that little look again. He stayed on his feet, but then Star reached out and took hold of his hand. Please stay, she whispered. His face softened. Okay, he said, and I saw him squeeze her hand tight. If she'd whispered, please fly out the window, he'd have soared straight through the glass. Marigold took him off with her. Star and I went to bed, but neither of us could sleep. I tucked myself up tight, my silk scarf over my face. I can't believe it, Star whispered. I suppose he's like she always said. He's better. I never believed her, and yet she was right all along. No wonder she's always gone on about him, and he's my dad. Yes, but he hasn't been like a dad, has he? I said, some of the sour feeling in my stomach tainting my words. How do you mean? He hasn't been in touch or taken you out or done any dad things, has he? I mean, I'm not criticising. My dad hasn't either. It's just rubbish, said Star, because he didn't even know I existed. You heard him. He was utterly taken aback. I bet he never even knew Marigold was going to have a baby. They must have split up before she told him. He left her, I said. I curled up even smaller, pulling the scarf so taut on my face it flattened my nose. Star didn't answer at first. I wondered if she'd gone to sleep, but about a minute later she said, He's not going to leave me. She did go to sleep soon after. I couldn't sleep at all. I could hear Marigold and Mickey. I slid right down under the bedclothes, the scarf a silk mask. It wavered and tickled every time I drew breath. I lay there long into the night, breathing in and breathing out. Star woke me early in the morning. What are you doing right down there, doll? You're mad, you'll suffocate. Come out. Sleepy. Come on, wake up. Don't you remember? My dad's here. He might have gone now. No, he wouldn't. But there was sudden fear in her voice. She moved off my bed. I heard the soft rustling sound of her brushing her beautiful hair, and then she pattered across the room. You can't go and see, I mumbled. Not if he's with Marigold. She'll get mad. He's my dad, Star hissed, and she left the room. I sat up and listened hard. She'd shut our door so I couldn't hear much. Star's voice whispering, and then his voice too. I felt a stab in my stomach. I'd wanted him to have done a bunk. I knew that was wicked. I felt a second stab because I was such a horrible sister. I couldn't hear Marigold, but she generally couldn't get up in the morning. Star and Mickey seemed to be in the kitchen now. I heard the wine in the pipe when someone turned on the tap. My mouth was dry with the taste of last night's pizza. I wanted a drink of water. I thought maybe I shouldn't barge in on them. I knew Star would want to be alone with him in the kitchen. But it was my kitchen too, and I was very, very thirsty. I got up and went into the kitchen, feeling shy and stupid. Mickey was making a cup of coffee, wearing his black clothes, looking fresh and washed, though his cheeks were shadowy with stubble. Star was sitting on the table sipping a glass of water and swinging her bare legs. They were deep in conversation, but they both stopped when I appeared. I want a drink of water, I said, like a stupid toddler. Sure, said Mickey, pouring me one. Now, Star and I were just discussing breakfast. We have cornflakes, but there isn't any milk, I said. I can go around the corner to the shop, said Star. I think it opens early on Saturdays. You can't go out and do the shopping, said Mickey fondly. He looked as if he thought she was too little to shop. I wanted to tell him that Star had done the shopping ever since I could remember. She was much better at it than Marigold. I opened my mouth, but Star glared at me. She obviously liked him, thinking she was just a dumb little kid. I thought we'd go out for breakfast, said Mickey. We blinked at him. You could go out for lunch, out for dinner. We'd never thought about going out for breakfast before. Where? I said. And then I suddenly got hopeful. How about McDonald's? We don't want burgers, we want breakfast, said Mickey. I know exactly where we'll go. You two girls can get your glad rags on. I'll try and wake your mum. She was out for the count when I last looked. We got ready in no time. Star didn't bother with makeup. She wore her black jeans, to be like him, and she tied a black velvet ribbon around her neck. That looks stupid, I said grumpily. The black on her white skin looked beautiful. I wore my own black embroidered top and a black and white check skirt that Marigold made me from a 50p remnant. She'd embroidered black and white yin and yang sangs in some of the squares, but she got fed up before she'd sewn it properly, so I had to safety pin it together. I wanted a black velvet ribbon necklace to set off my outfit too, but I couldn't copy Star. We'd woken Marigold together. She said, Mickey, even before her eyes were open. He's still here. He wants to take us out for breakfast, Star said proudly. Great, said Marigold, swinging her legs out of bed. She staggered as she got up. Oh, God, she said, clutching her head. I feel like death. She was a long time showering and dressing and putting on her makeup. When she came into the kitchen at last, her face was sickly white. Her eyes were bloodshot, and her hair hung limply, straggling about her ears. Her cross tattoo still wasn't healing properly and looked raw and scabby. She wore the skimpy sequin top and short skirt she'd had on yesterday. It didn't look right in the morning light. I looked at her worriedly. Up until that moment, I'd always believed Marigold was beautiful. Now, I wasn't so sure. Mickey was looking at her too, a little crease in his forehead. Okay, sweetheart. I tried to feel relieved. Sweetheart. He must really care about her then, although he said it in a casual, offhand way, as if it was about, well, what he called all his girls. Right, Star, he said, putting his arm lightly around her shoulders. He said her name specially, as if a real little star sparkled on his lips. He had his car outside, a red Jaguar XJ6. Star squealed when she saw it. Oh, wow, she said. I've never been in a Jaguar before. Sit in the front with me, said Mickey. Star glanced at Marigold. She nodded and put on her dark glasses. Yes, sit beside your dad, she said. Mickey chuckled. I can't hear that enough times. Dad. It's so weird too, because this last year or so I've been very conscious of time passing. Like a crossroads, Marigold said triumphantly, climbing in the car, showing a great deal of her decorated legs. Oh, Mickey, we're soulmates. That's why I had to get the cross. Hey, maybe I'll get Steve to add your name and mine at the back of the cross, or maybe in a swirly pattern, joined at each end. Whatever, said Mickey. No, what I was meaning, I got to thinking how much I'd like to have a kid. Seriously wondering about it, though the idea of little puking babies kind of put me off. And now I can't believe my luck. A beautiful, ready-made daughter, the sweetest surprise of my life. Star giggled as he helped her fix her seat back. She peered over her shoulder and mouthed, See? I saw all sorts of things that day. It stopped me enjoying what should have been the most special day of my life because we had so many treats. Mickey drove us right to London and we had breakfast in a posh hotel. We had croissants and coffee and this most amazing fizzy drink that was partly orange juice and partly real champagne. I wondered if I was going to get drunk. Star seemed slightly sloshed before she'd had a single sip. She sat close beside Mickey and he kept fussing over her food, opening up a little pot of jam and spreading her butter for her. I spread my own croissant and ate it awkwardly, smearing greasy crumbs all down my black velvet skirt. The bubbles in the Buck's Fizz took me by surprise and I coughed and spluttered. Marigold reached over to thump me on the back and knocked her own coffee over in the process. Star and Mickey looked as if they wished they were on their own. We went to Hamley's in Oxford Street afterwards, a special huge toy shop. Mickey took us to look at the dolls, though even he could see that Star was past that age. I knew I should be too old for dolls too, but I ached with longing as I looked at all the specially designed dolls, locked away in glass cases. They had beautiful, gentle faces and long hair. My fingers itched to comb it. They had wonderful romantic outfits too, hand-sewn smocked dresses and ruched pinafores and perfect little leather boots. I leaned my forehead on the cold glass and stared at them all, making up names for each one and inventing their personalities. They all reached out for me, with their long white fingers. They looked so real I was sure they couldn't be old and stiff to touch. I chose the one I liked the very best. She had long blonde curls and blue eyes in her dress and pinafore outfit, the pink and blue of hyacinths, with pink silky socks and blue shoes fastened with little pearl buttons. I called her Natasha and knew she and I could be best friends forever. Come on, doll, Star said, tugging at my elbow. When she finally managed to prise me away, I left a little blur on the glass where I'd breathed in and out so longingly. Marigold was rushing around all the Barbies, talking in a high-pitched, overexcited way like she was a little girl herself. She was worse down in the toy animal department, picking up bears and lions and monkeys and making them growl and roar and gibber. I got scared one of the assistants would come over and tell us off. I knew Star was tense too, forever glancing at Mickey. He seemed surprised but was quite cool about it. He even did a spot of animal talking himself, making a big gorilla lunge at Star so that she squealed. I hung back, thinking of Natasha upstairs. Doll, say thank you to Mickey, Marigold said, nudging me. I hadn't taken it in properly. Mickey wanted to buy all three of us a toy animal. He tried to talk Star into having the huge gorilla, but she laughed and said he was too scary. She chose a honey-coloured teddy bear with a slightly squashed snout and velvet-padded paws. Marigold made a much bigger production over her animal, juggling with hippos and pandas and an enormous plush python, but she eventually chose an orange stripy tiger with great green eyes. It looks exactly like you, Marigold, said Mickey. He turned to me. You must choose too, Dolphin. How about a dolphin? There were big fat turquoise dolphins with black faces and white zigzag teeth. I didn't like them at all, but I felt it might be rude to say no. I was desperate to get Star on her own to see if I could ask for Natasha instead. I knew she'd cost a lot more than a dolphin, but Mickey obviously had lots of money, and he'd been prepared to buy Star the gorilla, which was nearly £200. But Star was his daughter, and she'd eventually chosen a much cheaper teddy. I didn't dare ask outright for Natasha. It's hard to choose. They're all lovely, and the dolls are lovely too, I added, hinting heavily, but no one was really listening to me. I ended up with a dolphin. It swam around in its Hamleys plastic bag, bumping into my legs at every step, snapping at me with its sinister teeth. Marigold carried her tiger ostentatiously over her shoulder so that people stared at her more than ever. Star held her teddy lightly in the crook of her arm. She had a long conversation with Mickey about teddy bears. He had had one special teddy throughout his childhood. I've always wanted a special one too, said Star, and now I've got him. I made a vomit noise. Star and Mickey ignored me. Marigold was whiter than white, looking like she might do some real vomiting. She talked non-stop. Mickey would nod or comment every now and then, but he barely looked at her. We had lunch in Planet Hollywood, and we got free T-shirts, and then we went into the Trocadero and went all around Sega World. I tried counting up in my head how much all this was costing. Maybe Mickey was a millionaire. We went for a walk around Soho afterwards. Star and I had a giggle at the sex shops, and then we went to Chinatown, and Mickey bought us embroidered Chinese slippers, black for me and green for Marigold and ruby red for Star. We were still very full with lunch, but we stopped for cakes in a French tea shop. Marigold didn't order a cake. She had a lemon tea. She kept sipping and sipping it. Maybe she was thirsty because she'd been doing so much talking. I chose a big creamy cake with pink marzipan icing. It was beautiful, but I felt embarrassed in case Mickey thought I was greedy. He and Star chose strawberry tarts. Star didn't eat her pastry. She just picked out the big strawberries and relished them, licking them clean of cream and delicately nibbling the red flesh. Mickey watched her with amusement. Don't mess around with your cake like that, Star. Eat it properly, said Marigold. Let her eat it how she wants. She's enjoying herself, said Mickey. You could say that again, said Star. This is the best day of my life. I don't want it to ever end. There was a fun fair in Leicester Square with one of those mad machines where they strap you in and whirl you around and round. Hey, let's have a go, Marigold yelled. Mickey looked at Star, and she pulled a face. Hang on, Marigold. The kids will be sick straight after eating those cakes. Oh, come on, you come with me, Mickey, said Marigold. Do let's, darling. The girls will wave at us, right? Come on, let's have some fun. Marigold looked as if she was being whirled around right where she was. Her hair stood out, her eyes glittered, her whole body jumped and twitched. She grabbed Mickey's arm, trying to pull him. I hate these things, babe, said Mickey, and we can't leave the girls standing by themselves. There are all sorts of crazy characters around here. Hey, why don't we all go on the roundabout? Oh, yes, I love roundabouts, said Star. So do I said, though no one was listening to me. I pretended Natasha had kicked her way out of her glass cage with her little blue boots and had run all the way down Regent Street to find me. Yes, we love roundabouts, don't we, doll, she said, and she put her little hand in mine and jumped up and down, her silky curls flying out around her face. Marigold was getting in a state, and I didn't want to see, so I swept Natasha up into my arms and told her that she could come and live with me. I'd undress her and wrap her in my special silk scarf each night, and we'd cuddle up in my bed and tell each other secrets, and then we'd go to school, together each day, and all the other girls would want to be Natasha's friend, but she wouldn't talk to anyone but me. Well, she might say hi to Owly, but absolutely no one else. We'd be work partners, and she'd be brilliant at lessons and do all the writing for me, and we'd come top all the time. For God's sake, Marigold, said Mickey, and he shook himself free from her clutching hand. She stood for a moment, her hand empty, and then she started laughing. Well, I am going to have some fun, she said, and she dashed off to the whirly machine herself. Mickey looked at Star. Is she often like this? He said. Star hesitated. She's okay, she said eventually. Can we go to the roundabout? I chose a black horse with red nostrils and a purple saddle. I sat behind the twisted gold rail so that Natasha could sit in the front. Star chose a white horse with a scarlet saddle. She sat at the front. Mickey got up behind her. I watched them and felt giddy even though the roundabout hadn't started. I looked across the square for Marigold. She was sitting up on the machine, showing a lot of her legs, still clutching her tiger. There were lots of other people strapped in too, but the seats either side of her were empty. The roundabout started. Each time it twirled me past the machine, I craned my neck to spot her. It had started hurtling violently backwards and forwards, and round and round. Everyone was screaming. Marigold's mouth was a huge O as she screamed louder than anyone. I gripped the barley sugar rail until my hands hurt. The roundabout slowed down, but Mickey paid for us to have 2 more turns. He and Star were talking all the time. It was as if their white horse had galloped off the roundabout and carried them far away. I tried to talk to Natasha, but I couldn't make it work anymore. I was on a horse by myself, and it was getting dark, and the day was about to end, and I didn't know what was going to happen, and I was scared. Marigold was much more scared than me. She was shaking all over when she stepped off that stupid machine. Mickey had to put his arm around her to support her. She leant back against him, nuzzling into his neck. Come on, I think it's time we went home, said Mickey. Your home, said Marigold. No, not mine, said Mickey. You know I live in Brighton now. Our home, said Marigold. Never mind, just so long as we're together. Oh, Mickey, I can't believe we've found each other again, and we're going to have fun, 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 fun. I don't know who she was kidding. Maybe not even herself. She chattered and sang and bounced around all the way home, but she sounded desperate. Mickey waited to announce the obvious until he'd drawn up outside our house. He made sure we were out of the car. I have to go back now, but it's been a truly great day, and I'll come back again really soon. He gave me a little squeeze on the shoulder. He gave Star a shy kiss on the cheek, and then paused helplessly in front of Marigold. She'd started to cry. No tears, babe. I'll be back soon, I promise, he said, giving her a kiss on her cheek, as if she was a child like us. And then he jumped back in his car and drove off. I looked at Star. She watched the car until it was out of sight. She went on watching, as if she could still see it. She wasn't crying like Marigold. Her face was carefully expressionless, but her eyes were shining. Mickey sent presents every day. Not just for Star, for me too, and Marigold. Some were funny little presents like a dainty flowery hanky for Star, and me in a great big giant red and white spotted hanky for Marigold to mop up all her tears. Some were practical. He sent a mobile phone because he knew our own phone had been cut off. Some were expensive, necklaces in little black velvet drawstring bags. I had a little silver dolphin on a silver chain. I wished I didn't always get stuck with dolphins. Marigold had a big droplet of amber, almost the exact orange of her hair. Star had a round black shiny stone that gleamed like a star whenever it caught the light. It hung on a narrow black velvet ribbon. Black onyx, said Marigold. No, it's a star sapphire, said Star, saying the name as if it was holy. It's not. Sapphires are blue. Everyone knows that, I said. Star sapphires are different. They're black and they look like they've got a star trapped inside. Mickey told me, said Star. She seemed to have managed to do a lot of talking with Mickey. She sometimes sneaked the mobile phone into her school bag before Marigold was up. She certainly didn't seem surprised at the present that arrived early on Saturday morning. It was 2 children's tickets to Brighton and back, dated that day. What are they? I said stupidly. Oh, Doll, wake up. Come on, let's hurry. Pack your nightie. We're staying overnight. On second thoughts, don't. It's way too gungy. You better just sleep in your knickers. Now, toothbrush, hairbrush, clean underwear. Star's things were all to hand, suspiciously spick and span. She'd known about this all right. Isn't there another ticket? I asked, looking in the envelope. They're both here, with Mickey's note, said Star. No, I mean, a third ticket, for Marigold. For me, said Marigold, stumbling into our bedroom. She looked pretty hopeless. She'd been drinking a lot since last Saturday, talking non-stop about Mickey, talking non-stop to him too, whenever she could grab the phone away from Star. Star shook her head. Marigold went white and ran to the bathroom. We heard her being sick. She's upset, I said. She's drunk too much, said Star. Please hurry up, Doll. It'll be much easier if we go now. We can phone Mickey from Victoria to say which train we're getting. He'll meet us. We can't just leave her. We can. She leaves us, said Star. This was true enough, but it still seemed too terrible a thing to do to her. She looked worse than ever when she came out of the bathroom at last. She was shivering in her petticoat, holding her own arms tight. She looked at the things Star was quickly stuffing in her shoulder bag. "We're going to Brighton for the weekend," Marigold said. Mickey told me on the phone." "It's just Dole and me," said Star. Her voice wobbled even though her face was firm. "And me," said Marigold. "Phew, I don't know what's up with me. Some tummy bug. Hope you girls don't get it, right? I better get my act together and get packing." "There are just 2 tickets, Marigold. One for Dole and one for me," said Star. "Oh," said Marigold, taking the envelope and peering inside, and then tearing it right open. "Well, it can't be helped. I don't mind forking out for my own ticket. Marigold, it's just Dole and me that are invited. I thought Mickey explained." "Explained what?" I said. "We're staying with him." "Well, I can stay with him too," said Marigold. Star sighed. She clenched her fists. She swallowed. "His girlfriend will be there." "His girlfriend?" I said, twitching. "I'm his girlfriend," said Marigold, running her fingers through her hair, trying to twist it into place. "He's got this other girlfriend, who lives with him. Marigold. Shan." "Shan," said Marigold, as if it was some disgusting swear word. "He said he told you all about her." "Yes, he did mention some girl, but he's the only guy I've ever truly loved, so I don't care if he's had a few girls since. He wouldn't be human if he hadn't, but I'm the one he went looking for. I'm the mother of his child. Of course I've got to come too. I've got to, haven't I, to see you're both all right." "We'll be fine, Marigold," said Star. "Doll and I had better get going. Mickey said we should try and get the 10 o'clock train." "Please, wait for me. Let me come too," Marigold said, rushing into her bedroom, putting her best beaded cardigan on over her old petticoat, but buttoning it up all wrong so that it hung lopsidedly. "Why can't she come too?" I hissed to Star. "There's nowhere for her to stay, Mickey said." Mickey said. "I'm getting a bit sick of your Mickey," I said. "He doesn't own the railways. He doesn't own the whole of Brighton." "He does own his own flat. It's very tiny. He's bought these 2 camp beds for us and we'll be sleeping in the living room. And he and Shan have the bedroom. There isn't room for Marigold. I could sleep on his sofa, or this Shan could. Look, if I'm going, she doesn't need to be there, acting like a nanny or whatever. She lives there most of the time. She and Mickey have been together for more than 2 years. "I'm his girlfriend," said Marigold, sticking her bare feet in her high heels and trying to pull her cardigan straight. "Don't be so stupid, Marigold. You only knew him a few weeks. He told me." "He stayed here last Saturday night because he wanted to see me," Star shouted. "And he wants to see me this weekend too, and I'm not going to let you muck it all up. You're not coming." "I'm not coming either," I said. They both blinked. "I'm not coming," I repeated. "Don't be daft, Doll. Of course you're coming. Mickey doesn't want to see me, and I don't want to see him either. I think he's horrible, and I think you're horrible too, Star. Marigold and me will stay home. You go off to Brighton with your precious Mickey. See if we care." "Right," said Star. "Right." She picked up her bag and walked out of the room. We heard our door slam, footsteps hurrying downstairs, and then the thunk of the front door closing. It was very quiet in our flat. Marigold stood half-dressed, shivering, still tugging at her cardigan. "Doll," she said, tears brimming. "It's okay," I said. "Look, you've buttoned yourself all skew-whiff. Come here." I did her buttons up properly. She still looked dazed, tears dripping down her face. "We'll have a lovely time, just you and me," I said. I hugged her tight, so that all the little beads in her cardigan dug in hard against my skin. I couldn't help hoping that Star would suddenly come rushing back. She'd say Marigold could come too. She'd insist I go with her. She'd stay at home with us. She didn't do any of those things. Marigold and I were left on our own. I wanted her to be pleased with me, that I hadn't gone with Star, but she started to get things twisted in her head, acting like it was my fault she wasn't invited to Brighton. I argued with her and she got really angry and started yelling, screaming like she'd never stop. Her eyes, little green slits, her mouth a great red cavern, spittle running down her chin. She kept waving her arms in the air and I was scared she was going to hit me, even though she'd never smacked me in my life. I tried talking back to her, but she was making so much noise she didn't hear me. There was a big thumping at our door. Marigold took no notice of that either, so I didn't answer it. I knew who it would be. Mrs. Luft started hissing through the letterbox. "If you don't stop that crazy noise, I'll call the police, and they'll get you carted off to the loony bin where you belong." Marigold heard that. She sprang to the door and flung it open. Mrs. Luft staggered backwards, almost falling over. Marigold's arms were still flailing. "Don't, Marigold," I screamed. Marigold got stuck in space, arms up, on the tip of her toes, mouth stretched in a shriek. "Don't," I said, "don't." Marigold looked at me as if she could see me properly at last. She dropped her arms and slumped against the wall, breathing heavily. Mrs. Luft backed away, still in a crouched position. "She's crazy, a real crazy woman, acting totally demented, and her with 2 dependent kiddies," she muttered. "We're fine," I said, My mum was just mad at me because I did something ever so naughty. She shouted at me. So what? And we're not just dependent on Marigold anyway. We've got a father, haven't we, Marigold? Star's with him now, and if he thinks you've been saying wicked things about my mum, like she's mad, then he'll sue you for slander. Just you wait and see, the mean old ratbag. Mrs. Luft straightened up. I'm not indulging in a common brawl. You belong in the gutter, all of you. Now keep your voice down or I really will call the police. I shut the door on her. I felt the blood zipping around my body like I'd been running a race. I wanted Marigold to clap me on the back and congratulate me, but she seemed out of it again. She rolled up her sleeve and started fingering her new cross tattoo, scraping along its lines with her nails. Don't. You'll get it infected, picking at it like that. I got her antiseptic cream, and she rubbed it in slowly. It seemed to soothe her. She got washed and properly dressed. I did her hair for her. I combed it up into a chic pleat and anchored it with my green clasp. Close your eyes, I said, and I sprayed her hair thoroughly to keep every single tendril in place. Marigold's third eye stared back at me, unblinking. She'd had another big green eye tattooed at the back of her neck. It was usually hidden by the sweep of hair. It was a bit of a startling to see it looking at me like that. When I was in year 1 at my first primary school, I can't even remember its name. I went to so many different schools. But anyway, this teacher used to cluck at us if we were naughty and say she needed eyes in the back of her head to see what we were all up to. I told her my mum had an eye at the back of her neck, a big green one, and she said, yes, dear, like she didn't believe a word of it. I put my finger out and touched the green skin. The eye still didn't blink, but I could feel Marigold quivering. Don't poke me in the eye, she said. It was our old joke. It was great to hear her say it. She seemed to have calmed down. I could still hear all that shouting in my head, and it was still scary. Maybe it was good she'd got it all out of her system. Now she wasn't mad at me anymore. What shall we do today, Marigold? You and me? Big mistake. Do, said Marigold. We're going to Brighton. I did my best to talk her out of it. We didn't know where Mickey lived for a start. We'll find it. I'll know as soon as I'm near it, Marigold said. How will you know? I looked at the mobile phone. I suppose you could always phone and ask. But she didn't know the number. Mickey had always phoned her. Star knew the number. She'd kept it to herself. We both stared at the phone as if it could dial the number by itself. It suddenly started ringing and we jumped as if it was alive. And then we both made a grab for it. I was quicker. Is that you, doll? It was Star from a call box. I could hear tannoy announcements in the background. Are you at the station? Yes, listen. How is she? She's... okay, I said. I didn't want to tell Star about Marigold's shouting fit. And it was all over now. You're sure? Look, I've got to get the train in a minute, but I just wanted to check. Star, wait for us. We're coming to Brighton too. No, not with Marigold, you can't. Don't let her. Star, please. Oh... Then there was a little sound like a sob. I wish I knew what to do, she said. Why couldn't you have come with me in the first place? Oh, doll, is she really okay? Look, I have to go. I'll miss the train. I'll have to see Mickey. He's my father. What's his phone number, Star? What? The number. I need the number. No, I can't give it to you. I'm not allowed, said Star. I'll phone you. I'll phone this evening, right? I'll be back tomorrow. Marigold grabbed the phone from me. Star, sweetie, I have to talk to Mickey. It's a terrible emergency. Please give me the number right this minute. Star rang off. Marigold screwed up her face in anguish. A strand of hair escaped and dangled down around her ear. I tried to pin it back into place. We can ring directory inquiries, I said. Give them Mickey's name. Brilliant, said Marigold. But Mickey was ex-directory. It doesn't matter, said Marigold. I don't need it. I know all the real things about him. The way his eyes crinkle when he smiles. The freckles on his back. The way he sings in the shower, the music he's crazy about. There, doll, I knew he'd be at the Emerald City concert. I found him there. I just walked straight up to him. We'll go to Brighton and we'll walk straight there and he'll be so glad to see us. It'll be just like last Saturday. We had such a magic time, didn't we, the four of us? Just like a family. But Star says he's got this Shan. She's nothing. We'll get rid of her, said Marigold. Come on, doll. We're going to Brighton. What were you playing at, wasting all this time? Having that silly tantrum. I stared at her. Did she really have it so mixed up in her head that she thought I'd done the shouting? She didn't quite meet my eyes. She turned her back so that the third eye could gaze at me steadily. So we went to Brighton. We used my ticket. Marigold used her new credit card for hers. It was another scary thing to worry about. I couldn't remember if I'd ever been to Brighton before. Marigold stepped out smartly the moment we got off the train, but she didn't seem to know her way around either. It wasn't too difficult to walk towards the seafront because you could tell by the glint in the distance. It was further than it looked. Marigold was wearing her high heels. We'll get a taxi, she said, spotting one. The taxi stopped and the driver stared at her. Take us to Mickey's place, Marigold said, climbing into the back of the cab. Where? Mickey's place. Is that a club or a pub or what? What's the address? I'm not too sure. If you could drive us around for a bit, I'm sure I'll recognise it. Have you got cash, lady? Of course I have. Well, credit card. No thanks. Out you get. And you, little girl. I'm not taking you on a tour round blooming Brighton. You're crazy. What did you call me? Said Marigold. I had to haul her out of the cab quick. We walked after that, down to the seafront. There was no sand, but the sea was bright turquoise blue, and the pier had a huge glitter ball that sparkled in the sunshine. Marigold started to sparkle too. She caught my hand and we went on the pier. She found a booth where they do astrology charts to see if you're compatible with your partner. She knew Mickey's birth date, even though she didn't know his phone number or address. She used up the last of our cash, seeing if they were soulmates. The computer printout reckoned they were 75% compatible, much higher than average. Marigold read it 3 times, a huge smile on her face. And then we went through the amusement arcade, to the end of the pier and back. I wish she'd just left some cash so we could have had a go at grabbing a bright green teddy or a fluffy panda with a spotted bow tie out to the machine. I have loved an ice cream too. It was way past lunchtime. Marigold rarely got hungry when she was in one of her states. There was a fish and chip place in the middle of the pier. The smell made me suck in my cheeks. There were people sitting in a long line of deck chairs, nibbling bits of batter and chomping chips. One thin girl barely touched her polystyrene platter, just throwing the odd chip to the seagulls, and then she went off with her boyfriend. I stared after them. I stared at her fish and chips. There were seagulls with beady eyes and sharp orange beaks perching on the pier railings, waiting. I got there first, snatching the platter up and tucking in. "Doll," said Marigold, but she didn't stop me. She stared way into the distance, her eyes narrowed. Every time she spotted anyone with fair hair, she tensed up, her hand clasping my greasy fingers. But so far, we hadn't caught a glimpse of Mickey and Star. "But we will find them," said Marigold. We walked and walked and walked. Marigold had such bad blisters, she stuffed old tissues between her straps and her feet. We went all over a big modern shopping centre, asking in all the jewellery shops, but no one knew Mickey or his work. "They're all too modern, too tacky, too chain stores," said Marigold. We went round and round little winding lanes full of antique jewellery shops. "Too old," said Marigold after we'd gone in and out of every one. We walked further and found small, lively streets with people plaiting hair and playing penny whistles and selling amber off stalls. "This is more like it," said Marigold. We went into several jewellery shops. We couldn't see any rings like the one he'd been wearing, and there were no necklaces like ours. No one knew Mickey, or if they did, they weren't letting on to us. "We're not going to find him, Marigold," I said, undoing my shoes and arching my poor, sore feet. "Of course we're going to find him," said Marigold, pulling me after her before I'd even got my shoes back on properly. We tramped around all over again until the shops started shutting. "Can't we go home now?" "We're not going home until we join up with Mickey and Star," said Marigold. She seemed to think if she said it enough times, it would somehow come true. She kept slowing down when we went past pubs. I knew she was longing for a drink. I was terribly thirsty myself. I tried drinking from the cold water tap in a ladies' loo, but it was hard gulping it down. Most of the water splashed my front, making my t-shirt uncomfortably sodden. It was starting to get cold, the wind blowing off the sea. "Please, let's go home," I begged. "Just stop it, doll. You've got to stop being so negative. Maybe it's your fault we've not found them yet." I was scared she was starting to get angry again. I was tired and hungry and cold and my feet hurt. I just couldn't hold on any more. I burst into tears, great gulpy sobs like a baby. "Stop it," said Marigold. I couldn't. "Stop it," she said. "Look, it'll be all right when we find them. Mickey will take us out for a meal and we'll have such a great time. It'll be beautiful, I promise. But you've got to shut up now, doll. People are staring at us. We'll just walk a little further. I bet we suddenly stumble on them in the next street. I just know we'll find them if we only try hard enough." "That's crazy," I sobbed. Marigold slapped me hard across the cheek. I reeled back, catching my breath. Marigold seemed stunned too. She looked at her own hand as if she couldn't believe what she'd done. Someone said loudly, "Fancy slapping your child like that." "She ought to be reported," said another. Then someone tugged at my arm. "Are you all right, dear?" I stared at them, and I stared at Marigold. "Quick, doll," said Marigold, catching hold of my hand. She started running, pulling me with her. Someone shouted after us, but no one tried to follow. When we were halfway up the street, Marigold pulled me into a shop doorway. "I'm sorry, doll. I'm so sorry," she said, starting to cry herself. "I didn't mean to hit you. Oh, God, I can't see in this light. Is your cheek all red? You poor little thing. I was so mean to you. Here, hit me back. Really slap my face. Go for it." She picked up my hand and tried to make me hit her. My arm flopped back to its side. "I don't want to hurt you," I said, sniffing. "Oh, don't. That makes me feel worse," said Marigold, crying harder. She cried like a little girl, her mouth open, snot running down her nose. I fumbled in her bag and found a tissue. Here, I said, wiping her face carefully. It's like you're the mum, Marigold wept. It was a game she sometimes liked to play. I decided it was my best chance to getting us home. Yes, I'm the mum, and you're my little girl, Marigold. Dear, you've got yourself in such a little silly state, darling. Let Mummy wipe your nose again, I said. Now, come along with me, there's a good girl. I'll tell you a story as we go right, precious. Yes, Mum, said Marigold in a little girl's voice. Okay then, darling. Well, once upon a time there was a little baby girl called Marigold, and she had eyes the colour of emeralds and hair the colour of the setting sun, and she got stolen away by evil people. It was an old story, one that Marigold had made up herself, but she listened as if she was hearing it for the first time. We walked on uphill, and I hoped we were going in the direction of the station. Marigold stumbled once and twisted her ankle. I put my arm around her, and she snuggled in. I felt like I really was the mother, and she was my little girl. I wished I could lift her right up in my arms and carry her. She was crying again, tears dribbling down her cheeks. We're giving up, aren't we? She said. No, darling, of course we're not giving up. We'll come back lots and lots, and we'll find them, and it'll be lovely, like you said. But we're tired now, and you're very, very tired. So Mummy's going to get you home and put you to bed and cuddle you to sleep. Marigold stopped. I thought she was going to stop the game, stop me. I waited for her to get angry. She looked at me, and it was like she was looking right through my eyes into my head at all the worries inside. Oh, doll, she said. She sighed as if all the breath was kicked out of her. Oh, doll, why do I do this to you? She came to the station, and we caught the train. She fell asleep. I put my arm around her and let her rest her head on my still damp chest. The ticket man came. I had to wake her, but she was okay with him, even chatting him up a little bit. He had tattoos on his arms, simple heart and dagger flashwork. He looked at Marigold's skin with awe. When we got back home at long last, the phone was ringing and ringing. Star sounded frantic when I spoke. Oh, doll, I've been so scared. Why didn't you answer? We've been out. Didn't you take the phone with you? We didn't think about it. That was the point. It's a mobile, right? Oh, God, you're so stupid. Are you all right? Is Marigold okay? Where have you been? Star paused. I paused too. Marigold stood watching, biting her finger. Oh, no. You haven't been to Brighton looking for us, have you? Of course not, I said quickly. Yes, you have. You should have stopped her. Look, doll, even if she found him, it wouldn't be any use. Mickey's got Sian. He doesn't want anything to do with Marigold any more anyway. Listen, he thinks she needs treatment. He says it isn't all horrible and electric shock stuff like Marigold goes on about. He says she can just take this drug and it'll calm her down. But he says she shouldn't be looking after us when she can't even look after herself. I was holding the phone so hard against my ear that I was making grooves in my skin. Star's voice still leaked out of her corner. Marigold could hear every word. Shut up, Star. Mickey's dead worried about you, doll. You should have come up with me. I'm telling you, he thinks she's really crazy. I cut off the call. Marigold stared into space. Then she dragged herself into her room and fell on her bed. She wept into her pillow where Mickey had lain, her skirt rucked up, her poor sore heels blistered and bleeding. Her hair straggled down from its clasp, but the third eye peeped out between the red wisps, dry and unblinking. And that is where we will leave part 4 of The Illustrated Mum by Jacqueline Wilson. I'll be back soon with the next part of this fantastic story and lots more stories and videos coming your way very soon. If you'd like to subscribe or hit a like, that's always appreciated, guys. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.